Welcome to Elder Savvy. I am Anna Seery, the Director of the Pembroke Council on Aging. The goal of Elder Savvy is to provide content-related topics from experts in the community to enhance the quality of life for seniors in our community. My guest today is Gwen Morgan, author of the What If Workbook. With Gwen, I will explore the subtitle, Give the Gift of Preparedness to Your Loved Ones, what this means and what you need to do to be prepared. So Gwen, welcome.
Thank you.
And my first question is, what inspired you to write the What If Workbook? And I just wanted to share the cover title with...
There she is. Thank you so much for having me, first of all.
Oh, you're welcome.
So what inspired me? This part of my journey sort of started in 1996. My mom had suffered from Alzheimer's disease for 10 years, and that's the year she passed away. She actually passed away from lymphoma, which we didn't know about because she had the Alzheimer's. So at the same time, my father-in-law, who lived on the Cape Cod, had Lou Gehrig's disease. And he had a hospice volunteer that stayed with him and helped out my mother-in-law so that at other times. And I just thought what a great thing to do to help give back to the society, whatever, which has always been important to me. And so I went through the training at South Shore Hospital and I became a hospice volunteer, which I loved. And I found out that I loved working in the senior community, so I started working for a home care agency. And so I found that a lot of these seniors who I was visiting, sometimes their communication with their families was not that great. And here I was hearing their stories, and they were telling me all of their stuff and their wishes and their values and all that. And so that really hit me. So then I was doing all of this, the hospice volunteering and the elder care, and fast forward 4 years, my Aunt Jeanette passed away, my mom's sister. And after her funeral, my cousin Michelle was like so calm and collected. And I looked back on my mom's funeral, and we didn't have any plans at all. We didn't think about it. I was born and raised Catholic, so I knew we'd have a mass. And then we knew we'd have a wake. My dad wanted an open casket. But I remember my dad and my sister sort of bickering about which dress to lay her out in. And I'm like, ugh. And then we were going to have a mass. And my mom was always a free spirit, so we wanted to have something special for her music. And she always loved The Sound of Music, the movie. So we asked the priest, could we do The Hills Are Alive for The Sound of Music? And he says, no, you can't do that. So I remember thinking, and it was fine, but I remember thinking, you know, whatever. At that point, she was like the first one close to me that I had gone to a funeral for, so I figured that's what it was. Yeah. So go back to Aunt Jeanette. My cousin Michelle said, Mom was so great. She wrote down what hymns she wanted sung, what scriptures she wanted said. They had she had pre-purchased a burial plot for herself and my uncle across the street. She wanted to be buried in whatever outfit it was with her rosary and her Bible and her casket. And I thought, what a gift that is to have that all written down for the people who you're leaving, because it's such a hard time. You have 3 days to get everything together in your mourning. So at that point, I thought, wouldn't it be great to have some kind of fill-in-the-blank guide to help people get their affairs together, all written down before there's a crisis, when it's not, you know, a terrible situation, just a practical thing, and to have people open the conversation about what their last wishes are, where their stuff is. So in 2005, I thought that was 2000. It took me 5 years, and I kept getting hit. Why don't you write that workbook? Why didn't you write that workbook? And then I finally wrote it in 2005 and started marketing it and selling it in 2006. And I really consider it a ministry, a mission of mine for the last 10 years to help people get their affairs together. So the premise behind it is, you know, what if something unexpected were to happen to you? Does anybody know about your stuff? Would they know who to call, where your banks are, your usernames, account names, you know, the account numbers, things like that? Do you want a big party for your funeral? Do you want it small and intimate? So I know we're going to probably talk about what more is in the workbook, and I do want to make the point, I wrote the workbook to make it easy. It's a fill-in-the-blank guide to lead people through the process, because I saw it with all my past experience that people a lot of times don't know where to start. They say, oh yeah, it's a great idea, but I don't even know where to start. So people can write it down on a yellow piece of paper. They can do it. My whole philosophy now is just to have people do it, you know, before a crisis. And a lot of people just don't want to go there because of the death piece. And my hospice volunteering, I think, made me think there's birth, there's living a wonderful life, hopefully, and there's passing. And to me, it's part of the circle of life, and why can't we talk about the death part and be prepared? Because to me, you're really honoring your life by making these decisions for your family and then communicating about them.
Yeah, and those hard conversations.
They're really hard conversations, but if you can do it like, at the dinner table, or just say, hey, kids, or mom, dad, something happens to me, if I don't, in my case with my mom having Alzheimer's, I mean, if I don't know who my kids are, who my husband is, if I can't take care of my daily living activities, I really feel don't give me an antibiotic, don't give me an aspirin. I don't want that quality of life. But that's me personally, and so I do workshops and seminars also around the workbook, that there is no right or wrong decision. Like my dad, he says, do everything you can, no matter what, to keep me alive, because the next day, if you pull the plug, they'll find a cure for whatever. So that's his wish. I think it's changed over the years. I sat with him about 8 years ago, and that was it. And then that's what he wanted. Now he's 88, and he's thinking, well, and things change, and you need to update the conversation all the time.
Yes.
Yeah.
So let's kind of pick this workbook apart. I've gone through it, and what kind of impressed me is the first couple of pages are the same page, and in it is a tearaway page to give to people. So explain that a little bit.
Yeah. So I put that in there, and it says, dear whoever, I have filled out the What If workbook, and this is where it is. And I have also told, and there's a place to fill in the blank. And as I say at my workshops, that is just you can actually do it and fill it out, but it's really a reminder for people to tell somebody that you've done it. If you've taken the time to write your wishes down, write your affairs down, put it all down on paper, and where the things are, you need to tell somebody about it. You have to be sure you have communicated where that is, because if you've done it, great, but if nobody knows about it, it's a moot point. So I suggest that people get a portable fireproof box. I got mine at BJ's years ago. They probably have them at Staples or Office Max, whatever. And then put in all of these papers, your What If workbook, if that's what it is. Put in your passport, your birth certificate, your DD 214 papers, which I found out are the honorable discharge papers, which are really important papers to have on hand. Put all that, and then put it in a safe place. I suggest like in a closet, out of the way closet, and covered by clothes, because people say, well, it has all my information, what if we got robbed? So I say, hide it, and then tell that person, whether you actually fill out that page or not, where it is. And so in the what if is, what if something happens to you, but what if there's a flood? What if there's a fire? What if there's an earthquake? I mean, Mother Nature lately has been a little extreme. Yeah. So, I mean, that's the box you can take, and it has all of your information in it. Right. So maybe nice photos, all that sort of stuff. So that's what those 2 pages are.
So the beginning part is like personal information that we all have, and then the contact information. Yeah. Just want to describe those just a little bit.
Yeah. So the first page, the personal information is your name, social security number, date of birth, and all that. And one thing I added to that I think is important a few years ago, when I was still putting the book pretty much together, and I do update it because I have it printed, so I can always update it. I was doing a seminar, and there was an attorney, and there was a funeral director there. And I remember asking him, are there any things that I can put in my book, or that people should know, that could hold them up on getting their death certificate? I know, morbid, but I kind of don't like to go there, but it's kind of what I do. So, and the 2 things was having the DD 214 papers, which I didn't know about. It's the honorable discharge papers that are really important if you're a veteran to have, and they're important to have in life too, because you can get a lot of benefits if you're a vet. And I guess the building that housed them for people in this area burned, and so there was a fire, and so it's harder to get them. So DD 214 papers, and then. And I didn't know this, so say I passed away, in order for my family to get my death certificate, they need to know where my parents were born. And so I'm thinking, I have a wonderful husband, 2 adult children, and they probably wouldn't know that, where my parents were born. So I have that in the personal page. And then On the bottom, there's the dates of revision, because you want to know how updated is this, if it was written 10 years ago or 5 years ago or last week, because things change. Like I said, with my dad, we revisited his, and a lot of the things had changed in his life. His in bank accounts and his final wishes changed a lot in that time. And then the contacts are pretty much, there's a space to write in neighbors, friends, cousins, aunts, uncles. Maybe if you're involved with a religious, spiritual community, your employment, different things like that. Who's your attorney? Who's your accountant? Who's your tax person? That kind of thing. If you're an investment group or a book group, who would you want to have contacted? And then actually my dad gave me this idea. Then there's other contacts because my grandparents had built a home in Maine and it got left to him. And so he said, and then it's going to go to me and my siblings. And so he rents it, and then we use it so it's a year-round place. And he said, it would be good if people have a vacation home to have, who does the snow plowing, who does the landscaping, who does the maintenance, who's the plumber, who's the electrician, the people that you trust. Or even if, say, my husband and I passed and my kids have the house and it needs some repairs or something, who are the people, who are the professionals in your life that you could call to do the updates, someone that you should know. So to think about who to call. So in my case, in my workbook, it says, and it's also like, well, I figure my family knows about the people in my general life pretty much, but they don't know my cousins. They don't know my elementary school friend, high school friend, college friends. So when mine says, see my address book, and I say where it is, and then in my address book, I put down college friend, high school friend, and all that, because I'm too lazy to write down a lot of things. So, I mean, you can take shortcuts, of course. But, I just think
you modulate it to meet your life.
People,
So my focus, of course, working at the Council on Aging is, this is a benefit to the seniors.
Right.
However, it's really a benefit to anyone because you just don't know what's going to happen.
You just don't know.
So the next section is about children. So for people who have children that are still dependent upon them.
Right.
And we do have a lot of seniors who are caregivers to adult children.
Right.
So this next section is an important section too.
Right. Well, I think anyone, once they have a child especially, or if they've attained any sorts of, if they've accumulated any money, I guess, they'd want to put it down. Because my big thing is, if you're single, who knows about your stuff? You really need to get it written down and tell somebody that you trust explicitly. And then even if you're married or married, usually sometimes one or the other doesn't know about where the stuff is, so to have that conversation. But the children's page, I put in, there's an attorney friend of mine in Hingham, Mass, that had it on her blog. They say some people, when they go away on vacations, they don't give any specific instructions about their children, but they have everything about their pets. Exact instructions what to do in the case of emergency. So I actually got her permission and I wrote some questions about, what are their medications, what are their allergies, who can pick them up at school, who can't pick them up at school, all that sort of thing. And so it's kind of to fill that in and to remind people to choose a guardian too. Once you have a child, who do you pick, which is a huge decision. And that will go to the document storage session, which is, do you have the important documents together, which you really want from your community, which we'll get to.
We'll get to those.
I won't jump ahead.
And also the piece on pets, I think it's really important. My push last month, or actually for this month, is File of Life, which is that little red file
those
that
are
people
great.
put on their refrigerator. And I also, if somebody has a pet, I tell them to put information in about the pet, who to call, especially if they live alone and they're sent off to the hospital.
Right.
A lot of times the pet will hide if there's first responders there or something, and nobody will know there's a pet there.
That's a great idea.
I think it's important, for pets too.
Yeah. In the final wishes part, there's a place who'll take care of your pet if you're gone. And again, to think about who would be willing to do it, and again, ask them in advance.
Right.
Yeah.
And then the financial information is pretty straightforward for many people, but
it is.
A little the considerations under financial
well
information.
again, it's like I think people don't know where to start, but you go through your file box and write down where do you have your checking accounts, your saving accounts, your investment accounts. And now with people doing online banking, what are the account numbers? Well, that's a given for any of them, but what are the usernames and passwords? I mean, I know I have 4 pages of Excel sheets with from banking stuff to retail stuff to whatever stuff. You know, there's so much LinkedIn, Facebook. I actually, on my latest revision, I put a page just for social media or retail, like, you know, Crate and Barrel or, you know, LL Bean or whatever you have, you know, if you do online passwords. And even for your phone, I mean, look what, you know, I don't want to talk about San Bernardino, but if they can't get, well, I'm sure they delved into it more, but, you know, even the password, you know, to write that down. But it reminds people, you know, do you have a pension, an IRA, a 401k, life insurance? Does your family know you have life insurance? And because a lot of people set life insurance to pay for their funeral, but then if the person doesn't know it, and I don't want to digress, but on 60 Minutes last Sunday night, I put this on my Facebook page, that there are these life insurance companies that they know that the insured has passed away, but they're not paying the beneficiaries. And I guess they're under no legal obligation, which is amazing to me. So I put a thing, friends, if you have a life insurance, make sure your loved ones know about it, where it is, what the account number is, what the contact information is. And to tell your family that you have one, because that's huge. And they don't pay it back. They could have been paying into that policy for years.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
It is. So the personal assets, that's some of the financial.
Personal assets, more, you know, your home, your car. And another thing I'm finding, and this might be good for your seniors, when you have the title of your car, you know, you usually have a will and you don't want it to go into probate, but if it's in, like, say in my case, most of my husband and my stuff is joint owned, but my car, you know, it's in my name, and I think his car is in his name, but I want to change that to make it joint, because if something happens to me and it's in just my name, it has to go through probate. It's, you know, the title, which you don't even think about. So things like that, to start thinking about joint checking accounts, or for seniors as they get older to maybe have a joint account. But I've also heard horror stories where a son or daughter, they got put on the name thing and then they took the money. So you have to be really, really careful. But there's something called point of death on a savings account or a checking account or a bank account, an investment account even. So if something happens to you, it would go to that person. So POD, point of death. But the assets, I have like snowmobiles, airplanes, you know. It's just having people think about, you know, what is specific to them.
What do they have?
What do they have that they should take care of?
And I think sometimes as you sit and walk through all of these things, then you realize how organized you do need to get.
Well,
or how unorganized you are.
Right. Or how daunting the process is to even start it. But again, you know, even, and this is even to get organized around yourself. I mean, there's a place for credit cards to write down your credit card numbers, and in case of theft or whatever, if you lose them, the numbers. But that's even if you lose it, or if your purse gets stolen, or you lose your wallet. I mean, those are just good to have in a practical way. And then to maybe see, I have 5 credit cards. Do I really need 5 credit cards? Or going back, CDs. I have like 10 CDs. Do I really need 10 CDs? Because I've heard so many stories at my workshops of, you know, years later, some of these people, children who have been handling their parents' stuff, they, you know, they do a CD every time the interest rate went up 0.5%, and they didn't even know that these were there. And so you could consolidate your stuff, you know, maybe, and just for your own self to know where everything is.
Right.
Yeah.
Document storage. Talk a little bit about that.
Document storage is like the simple title, but it's probably one of the most important sections of the book, because again, the important documents to have, which we'll talk about now, the healthcare proxy, durable power of attorney, and a will if not an estate plan. Great, you've gotten them together, but where are they? So document storage, it's where are these things? So there's listed like your birth certificate, your marriage certificate, again, your passport, your DD-214s, your past bank statements, your IRS past statements, things like that. But I don't know if we want to touch on this, just how important it is to have a healthcare proxy, which is the person that you would choose if you're incapacitated, if you're not able to speak. This is the person that you would choose to make your healthcare decisions for you. So it's really important. I talk about this a lot at my workshops. To have that conversation with them, like what are your moral, ethical values? Are you a person who wants everything done no matter what, like we talked about at the beginning, or you just you don't want everything done. You don't want these medical interventions, because I used to do outreach with a local hospital, and the nurses came out with me and they said, you can, with the medical technology, they can keep a stone alive.
Yeah.
But is that what you want?
Exactly.
You know, and that's kind of a buzz, I think, out in the community right now. Like we've talked about, there's the 5 wishes, which I think you have, is just a great guide to help people through the conversation of their end of life wishes in a fill in the blank guide. And then there's something called the conversationproject.org. That's totally a website, and it's all online, but started by a local columnist, Ellen Goodman, who went through the horrible experience of not knowing what her mom would want. They never had the conversation, though they were very close. And Ellen's mother had Alzheimer's, and so they called her one day and said, she had pneumonia or something. They said, do you want us to treat her? And she said, well, what's the alternative? They said, well, you don't have to. And she didn't know what her mother would have wanted. So the Conversation Project is a great tool. They have something called the starter kit, like how to start those really difficult conversations. How do you do it?
Right.
There's a lot of talk around, have people over for dinner and have the conversation at the holiday table, have the conversation when people are there.
And the conversation is really good, but you have to then put it in writing, which is very important too.
Yes, right.
So we'll digress a little bit. With the 5 wishes, this is the 5 wishes, and we have them at the Council on Aging and give them out. When I'm talking to folks who tell me that they're going to the hospital, if they're going for a major surgery or something, I've said, what happens if it doesn't go the way you want it or expect it to go? Have you talked to your family? And most people will say yes, but what happens? I'm sure you've heard one child hears this and the other child hears that. And with 5 wishes, it allows the person to spell it all out. So, it's a really also a very good document to have and to use.
Can I just say one thing about that? It's great that you have them at your center, but if people want to get it, it's available online at agingwithdignity.org.
Yes.
Yeah. So, and I think they're a couple dollars. I know. So. Yeah.
They are, yeah.
But
I think
they're
$3 a booklet.
Yeah, they used to be $1. They've gone up. When I do my workshops, I give them out because it's great.
Do.
Yeah,
we purchase them and then hand them out too.
Yeah, they're good.
Family medical history. Let's go on to that. Why? There's a whole area on that.
Yeah. So family medical history. I just thought that. Can I just go back to one thing though?
Oh.
The other important documents to have are the healthcare proxy and the durable power of attorney.
Yes.
That's who will make your financial decisions for you if you're unable to speak. And so you kind of want somebody. It might not be the same person as your healthcare proxy. Well, it's the advanced medical directive in Massachusetts. It's the healthcare proxy. So I guess. But you want somebody who maybe is a little bit businessy, legal, organized, that kind of person, and that you trust explicitly, because they can sell your house, they can write you checks, they can sell stocks and your investments and all that. So they have the legal right, if you cannot speak for yourself, to do all the legal stuff.
And so with that being said too, is often I think people's dilemma is who do I choose? And I'll say to them, it doesn't have to be your oldest child. It doesn't have to be your first male child. With the healthcare proxy, it has to be somebody that thinks like you, that has the same end-of-life views that you have, and will make the decisions and understand what you choose, whether you want all of the interventions or whether at a certain point you don't want any interventions.
Right.
And then with the durable power of attorney, again, it's somebody who will think and act in your best interest. And those are really tough decisions to make often, especially when, children can be so far away. Oh my goodness, we have got so much more we need to cover.
So the family medical history is just, I thought it would be good if you have children to know, for them to know what's your history, your parents' history, your grandparents. So is there cancer, is there diabetes, is there high blood pressure, just so that they can take care of themselves better. That's pretty much what that is.
Terrific. Personal last wishes.
That's really important. That's just, do you want to be buried? Do you want to be cremated? If you want to be cremated, where? Or do you have a pre-purchased plot? Get the documentation together. Do you want to donate your organs? Some people have a really hard time giving up somebody's organs if they haven't had the conversation. I hear that a lot at the workshops. And then, do you want a huge funeral? Do you want the $10,000 mahogany casket? or is a pine basket okay? You'd rather help your kids or grandkids' education. Do you want a big religious service? Do you not? Maybe you want it at the lake or the mountains or in your backyard, and you want it nice and intimate. Do you want a big party after? I mean, I want an open bar. I want a celebration of my life. That's me. And it's in my workbook. I have, you know, where the money will be, where I want it, who to cater it. I have the whole shebang down.
Yeah.
And then we talked about, you know, caring for pets, pallbearers. Do you want flowers? What hymns? So what music do you want? What do you want? Religious stuff, scriptures, hymns, poems, you know, for people to craft their own service. So.
And then obituary and death notice.
Yeah, so
those are tough.
I really encourage people to write their own obituary and get a good picture. Put where you get your picture, or put one in there, because, you know, again, your family or whoever is handling it has like 3 days to get a lot of things together.
Yeah.
So I thought it's really honoring yourself. Like, again, probably most people know what you did, where you were born, raised, went to school, what you do for a living, but to take that opportunity to think maybe there's some other thing that they don't know about. Time in the military is big. Charities that you want to, that goes back to the funeral thing, you know, charities you want to give to upon your death, maybe some award you received in your lifetime that you were really happy about. So that's just kind of giving people a chance to do that. And then, yeah.
And then the last one, there's 2 more sections, final message.
Yeah, final message, an important one too is special gifts to loved ones. Before that is, I think, you know, everything, hopefully you have a will.
Yes.
We didn't talk about that, but everyone has a will. But I think maybe you have a pair of earrings you know your best friend loves, or your niece or nephew want, or niece wants, you know, to write that down for special gifts. Final message in your legacy, you know, how do you want to be remembered? Are you living that life that you want to be living? You know, go see that estranged family member that you haven't seen. Take that trip you haven't done. Write the book. Do the piece of art. So I encourage people to just, that's the last page, is to think about your legacy and live your life fully every day.
So, wow, it's a lot to think about.
It
but
is.
it's, you know, it's, again, it's a workbook.
Yeah.
And one of the things you told me, I don't think we said it, is you encourage people to use it, write it in pencil.
In pencil, because things
this always
change.
changes.
Yes, with a good eraser.
If somebody wanted one of your workbooks, how would they go about obtaining one?
Yeah, probably the best way to get it is on my website, which
Okay.
is www.whatifworkbook.com. The workbooks are $24.95 plus shipping and handling, or they're also available as an ebook for $19.95 for people that want to have it as a document, so they get it as an electronic file. It's the exact same content, fill it in by typing. Then you type it, save it as a document, and then you can share it that way.
Okay. And then at some point, can we do, you keep talking about workshops. So could we do a workshop at our COA?
Of course,
Okay.
yes, I would love to do that. I can just do a presentation like we did today and talk about the workbook, or we can actually go through, I call it interactive workshop. We'll go through the page by page, because I find a lot of people purchase the book and then they need to fill it out. That's the tough part. So thank you, I'd love to do that.
Okay, so maybe
Yeah.
sometime in the fall.
Perfect.
All right.
Perfect.
All right, so I have to thank you very much for
Thank
joining
you
me.
for
I
having
feel like we
me.
covered
I know.
a lot of information in a little bit of time.
Yes.
And there's so much details that go into each piece of that. It really is a big job. But I just have to go back to your subtitle, which is the gift, give the gift of preparedness to your loved ones,
Yeah.
because I always will talk to people and I'll say, this is a gift.
It is.
You
It
know,
is.
letting people know what you want, being organized, it's a gift to your children.
It is.
So, yeah.
It
So
is.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.